a few more people to join us. We're just waiting for Google to pick up the broadcast.
I'm good. Patty, I don't know if we'll be taking live questions from the people that are participating, but I think there's somewhere we should look out for those.
Yeah, so if you go to the Google Hangout page.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on air now. Okay, great. So guys, you're very welcome. Thanks for giving up your time. So we're joined by two Matts and one Alex, three fantastic entrepreneurs who've attended our events in the past, and we thought we'd use the next 20 or so minutes to just have a conversation around how some of the startups that are attending our event in about 4 weeks' time or 3.5 weeks' time can use the summit to the best of its potential as an opportunity to meet investors or to meet journalists or to grow awareness around your product. So I thought I might just ask each of the guys to introduce themselves. So I thought I might start with you, Alex.
Thanks, Patty. Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Hawkinson. I'm founder and CEO of SmartThings, and I guess we have the lucky position of being the winner of the startup competition last year, but glad to be here.
Fantastic. Matthew Galligan.
Yeah, so I'm co-founder and CEO of Circa, and have been in the Web Summit / Founders family for, I mean, almost since the beginning, right, Patty?
That's correct, yes.
All right.
Mr. Brimer.
Hey, Matthew Brimer, co-founder of General Assembly. General Assembly educates, connects, and inspires a global community of people empowered to pursue the work they love. And I've been to Web Summit and Founders events in Dublin and New York before.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to all of you. So I thought I might start with you first, Alex. You won the startup competition in Dublin last year. You used it, I guess, in a way as a launch pad for, at the time, your startup that was coming out of stealth, I guess, SmartThings. But I'd love to learn from your point of view as a serial entrepreneur, how you got the best out of the Web Summit. I know you met some investors and advisors, and how in general you approach conferences.
Yeah. I can say a few things about it, and happy to answer questions as well. First of all, the Web Summit stands high on the list. Probably one of the best attended conferences I've ever been to, just in terms of the depth of the audience. There's so many people there and so many unexpected connections that you can make. You want to really come prepared to, since you're making the investment in being there, to sort of take full advantage of that. So, for us, a few things stuck out as I thought about how we prepared for last year. One of the things is we sort of brought enough people from the company to really fully embrace the summit itself. It could be overwhelming if it was just one or two of us. So we brought 4 people. Last year, it's a little bit of extra investment, but if the most precious thing in a startup is your time, you're making the commitment to be there, you might as well, again, take full advantage. So we had 4 of the team members. That's also just fun. Dublin's a great place to hang out and drink a lot of Guinness in the late evenings and other things as well. So, make sure you have enough of your team members there to sort of really comb the events and take advantage of all the meetings that you can have and so on. We try to over-prepare in advance of conferences, so really think about what you want to get out of it. In our case, we looked at the attendee list and the speakers list, and people are very busy, so you can't reach out to them in advance, but you really have to be prepared to make your own luck while you're there. So spend some time thinking, looking at the other startups that are going to be attending, the types of people that you want to meet, and what you're hoping to get out of some of those connections, and memorize the names and faces and so on, so you can sort of be prepared for the lucky happenstance meetings at the networking events or after hours parties or whatever else is there. Yeah, go ahead.
Alex, just in terms of, are there any general rules? So you were in Dublin, essentially for the Web Summit was 2 days and 3 nights. Would you have spent, 2 days preparing or 3 days, or as a general rule, how much time do you put into preparation?
I mean, at least sort of 2 or 3 times the amount of time that you're there. So, I mean, we were preparing a couple of weeks in advance, Patty, and then you also have to be really prepared to, to put in the hours when you're there. Show up early and stay late. And, I give you an example. When we arrived and we saw the booth, we didn't know anything about Dublin, but we took a taxi out to get an LCD TV so we could put it in the booth to sort of have a slightly better presentation of the technology, when we were there. And there were a million examples like that of both preparing well in advance and then listening to the feedback we got during the event. Every morning we get up at 6 a.m. and get our timers out and time the pitch again, and get through the have enough coffee to get through the Guinness and so on. Wow,
fantastic! Thanks a million, Al. Matt Galligan. So you've built a few companies. You advise a lot of companies as well, and you've been to a lot of conferences over quite a few years. Based on all that experience, coming at it from both sides, both having startups approach you and then approaching as a startup, what kind of advice would you have?
I mean, there's a lot of different things, and certainly Alex hit a bunch of them on the head, but I'll kind of go a little bit deeper with a few, which is, number one of the most important things is to actually just kind of get over yourself and get in front of people. It can be a little nerve-wracking, especially if you find someone that may be someone you perceive as important, or you get a little nervous or whatever. But I mean, that's the only you lose 100% of the chances that you don't take. And so if you get out in front of these guys and just make yourself known and aware, then that's really important. But I think that you have a very limited amount of time to have somebody's attention and to give them value, because at the end of the day, if you try to just chat with them and immediately say, I want you to look at this thing, we are the X for X, you're usually not going to get, let's say, my attention or someone else's attention. But if you find a way to really dig in and actually show something compelling, that's a really good win. I mean, in my case, what I like to do is I usually like to set up a problem and then a quick solution. So for my current company, kind of illustrate why there is a problem and then what we are doing to solve this problem, and that helps get perspective a lot better with what you're trying to, the story you're trying to tell. But the other thing I like to underscore is that you're not trying to sell them in that moment. It's like when you're trying to meet people at a bar. You're not going to get the best quality people when all you try to do is try to get them to give them your number immediately. You try to establish something early on that you can then go and build a relationship out of. And so if it's bringing your card, putting your card in front of them, asking them for their card, but just getting in there, getting 60 seconds and saying, I'd love to speak with you a little bit more, then that's a big opportunity. And the other thing is, these guys are going to be, guys and gals are going to be inundated with people. And, sometimes it's the people that are most cognizant of their time that are the ones that are going to come back. Pardon me, that are going to pay attention to you. So even if you've got, let's say, a group of 4 or 5 people hovering around this one person, waiting in line to get to them, you can go up to them, tap on the shoulder, saying, hey, just wanted to let you know I got this thing I'd love to talk to you about. I'm going to be standing over here. Get with me when you get a moment. And so that, there's always this weird pressure when you're just standing there and there's just a line of people coming up to you. So that, showing assertion, showing that you mean business, can really help out.
Fantastic.
That's my slew of things.
Thanks, Matt Galligan. Just to say, welcome to everybody that's listening. I think we're up to 190 viewers, 194 viewers on live at the moment. If you've got any questions, you can type them in just below the kind of live stream, and I'll try to get to some of those questions. I've seen some of the questions already about what's happening in the evenings, and I'll get to those towards the end. So Matt Brimer, if I could bring you in with with General Assembly in a very, very short space of time, you've built an incredible community and an incredible community kind of affinity around what you guys are doing. But I'm wondering both specifically around your experience in doing that, but also in attending conferences, if you've any advice in ways you host events as well for the many startups coming to Dublin in 3 weeks' time.
Sure. So a couple of things that I've found to be really useful at conferences or summits or other sort of gatherings of entrepreneurs and whatnot around the world. Number one is when people are attending a multi-day conference, whether it's Web Summit or South by, they're in this kind of both social and professional mode where their day tends to be a little bit more open, right, to meeting new people and pursuing interesting opportunities or whatnot, right, kind of playing things by ear. But given that, I think that I've found a lot of success, at least, in looking at the people who I know are going to be attending a conference, whether speakers or attendees or whatnot, that I am interested in talking with, and then reaching out to them, even cold emails, right, a cold email or a cold LinkedIn message or whatnot, and say, hey, just saw you're also going to be at Web Summit in Dublin. I thought maybe we could grab a half hour and get a coffee and chat. Would be good to to meet. Maybe we can talk there at the summit. And more often than not, that's great. And I've been able to get meetings and conversations with people just by saying, hey, we're both going to be in the same city at the same event. Would be good to chat. And people are much more open to meeting, I think, new contacts and new people at conferences than they are in the rest of the normal life. So if I were to reach out to someone, in New York or San Francisco or something, just on a regular business day, it might be tougher than at a conference. So try that. Try reaching out in advance. See if you can schedule a time where you can grab a half hour. I think it can be effective. The other thing that I find to be useful is when you approach people, don't immediately talk about work. Don't immediately, especially if you don't know who they are, don't immediately ask, what do you do? If you can avoid that question altogether, I think it can generate a much more interesting, substantive conversation. Talk about a topic that you just heard a speaker mention, some interesting thing. Maybe talk about, you said you just saw a startup or just saw a product right around the corner that's doing something interesting, and here's why you think it's fascinating. It's like talk about something that as two people you can connect on. And then, after you kind of lay that groundwork and you get the person interested in talking with you as a person, then you can start talking about work. But it's just a nice differentiator because so many people immediately have just their work hat on and are immediately just in pitch mode and in what do you do for work mode. And so it's kind of nice as a foil to that to just be people first, and then after that you can build a professional relationship.
That's great advice.
And then the last thing I'll say is, I've met a number of entrepreneurs at conferences who, when they talk about their work and their product and what they're doing, it's so rehearsed and practiced, and they're doing it so often that there's no passion. That it sounds like they're almost bored. That they don't have the zeal or energy for what they're doing, and it's a little bit off-putting. It's like, this is your thing, this is your baby, this is your startup, this is what you're focusing your life on right now. And it sounds like you're just bored with it. And that doesn't inspire passion in the other person. The best interactions that I've had with entrepreneurs are people who can look me in the eye, and I just see and feel the excitement and passion that they have for what they're working on. And you just see their eyes, and their whole demeanor is excited. You can tell that they really believe in this, that they care about what they're doing at a very core level. And that's inspiring to me, and that makes me want to connect with them. I'd much rather connect with a passionate entrepreneur who's visibly inspired about what they're doing, what they're working on, the problems they're solving, than someone who's just kind of repeating an elevator pitch.
Great. I think all of that is fantastic advice. Guys, I'm just seeing a few questions coming through from some of those listening to us online, and there's quite a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and lump a few of them together. The first question I think probably should go to Alex Hawkinson. Alex, because you had a booth last year and you decided to bring 4 people. I'm just wondering, what insights, would you have 2, 3 insights? You talked about an LCD. Any insights on making the most out of your startup booth?
Well, make sure somebody's there. is
That's
a
more.
starting point. If you don't have enough people, you obviously want to attend to what the last what Matt Brimer was just saying is you want to fully engage in the conference, and so you want to watch some of the main speaking events. You want to attend the other startup competition pitches and things like that, and you can't do that and be at your booth if you don't have enough people there. So that's one. Make sure that people are aware that you're there. You can set up meetings. It's a great place when you encourage somebody to come by. You reach out to them on LinkedIn or whatever it is during the summit itself. It's a great spot to meet up and sort of draw people to the booth, obviously. So a couple of those things go without saying, but those would be the pieces of advice.
I could suggest one thing to some of those listening. Last year I saw a number of startups when they're handing out their business cards, they'd written the number of their booth on the business card, which just I guess was a useful reminder if people needed to to encourage people to kind of stop by, because you're going to be meeting people out late at night at 2 a.m. in the morning. You might end up having a final pint of Guinness with I don't know, some very reasonable investor, and the next day he's no idea really how to find you. But if you have the number of where your stand is on your card, I think that can sometimes help them specifically. I'm just seeing a question for specifically for Matt Galligan. Hopefully I'm reading it correctly. Matt, what's the trick to communicating across the divide between journalists and techies? I think for a lot of startups coming to Dublin, any startup at any event, there's journalists everywhere. In your experience, what's the key to getting them interested and getting them writing about your company?
Yeah, I think that it's really two things. I mean, you've got to at the start have something interesting. Period. Your product needs to be interesting to get them interested. But you have to tell a compelling story. I mean, you have to understand that these journalists are constantly getting pitched every single day, hour by hour, thousands of emails. And then when they're in an environment like Web Summit, I mean, there's so much noise, like just everybody trying to get that thing done. Two things. One would be just making sure that you've got a compelling story to tell, something that would get them interested just in the sense of, hey, this is a really interesting thing that I want to convey to my readers and things like that. But two, no expectations, because that's another thing that I think a lot of times journalists get hit with, is you come into it saying, hey, I think you should write about this thing. We've got this great company, whatever it is. In all the time that I've done my own PR and my own kind of work with journalists, it's always about establishing a relationship. Again, going back to a previous statement, which is just get in there, talk to them, try to get card, whatever it is, but build your own relationship with these journalists, and then over time there may be opportunities for you to get the story. Just the fact that you exist may or may not be a worthy enough story, but maybe sometime down the road there's a reason to ping them again.
Can I add one thing to that, Patty?
Sure.
I think it's great, sort of great suggestion on being human with them, making sure that your idea is big enough and you can frame it. You obviously have to think about the hard questions you're going to get about why it's different and so on. But journalists read the stuff that they write. As a side note, when you go into it, part of being a human being with them is sort of reading what else they write about, and that's often a great way to relate to them and break the ice, is sort of talking about a recent story they've written or some nuance of something that that they care about separately. It'll open them up to you.
Matt Brimer, do you have any suggestions with regard to kind of working with the press and building rapport and relationships?
So yeah, I mean, I guess like most things, I think this is how I think about investors and also press. It's much better to build the relationship first before you ask them for something. So when you first meet a member of the press, don't try to get them to write about you. Just try to get them just kind of hang with them. Like develop a personal relationship. Don't ask them for anything. Same thing when you're meeting investors, right? I think that's the best way to go. I think the dating. Someone used the dating metaphor. It's kind of like that. The more desperate you come across, the less attractive you are. right? So if you're not desperate and you're not looking immediately for something from someone, I think you can build a better rapport with them.
Okay, great. So I have another question. I don't know who'd like to take it. There must be a time during the day, there's a team of 3 or 4 of you are at the Web Summit. At what point do you regroup, look at everybody's business cards, decide which follow-ups are kind of a priority, which can wait maybe until after the event? Is that constant during the day, or in your, maybe somebody might like to take it? How does the team kind of function in real time during the day?
I think one good way to get it done would be just to use a group messaging service like a GroupMe and things like that, to be able to just keep in real time. I mean, for example, it could be that you need to grab everyone because, hey, there's this important thing and you want to get everyone to talk to this one person, or at least have, if you've got your tech guy there, and you need some technical questions answered, then be able to get a hold of them immediately. But just so that you're able to keep real-time communication, I would say something like a GroupMe or other similar solution would be a little bit more effective, I think, than just trying to say, hey, guys, let's all meet up at this one time, because you might be caught in the middle of one meeting when you would need to be arriving there.
Alex or Matt Brimer?
I mean, I'd say the same thing. We just had a constant stream going throughout the entire event, reacting in real time to stuff. But then, of course, at the beginning and ending of every day, sleep up in advance, because while you're there for the couple days, just expect you're going to be going around the clock. And starting at the beginning of every day, we'd sort of talk about what was on deck for the day, what were the best opportunities for us to go after.
Matt Brimer or Alex, I'm wondering then on follow-up post any conference. Is there, do you have habits? What are the kind of best practices for follow-ups with all the people that you've met? For example, how long would you advise waiting? You've built up a great rapport with an investor. Do you ping him the next day after the conference, or should you wait the weekend and hit him the next week? What are the best practices? Up to either of you to go first.
I can speak. I mean, we had a lot of follow-up, and I'll just say that, the connections were tremendous there, both between the judges for the startup competition and for the investors. We haven't announced all of the financing that we've done, but all of the investors that have invested in us were present at the summit last year. We didn't know they would be investors in the future. So, generally, people are away from work for a few days at the summit. It's very intense. If you go back 24 hours later, you're often going to get lost in the stream of them catching up on things. So I say usually wait about a week, but certainly don't let it be a month before you follow up. And as it was said before, also, you don't need to accomplish everything in the first meeting. You just want to establish a human connection and then build a relationship over time. If you're too needy, it's gonna backfire.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Matt Brimer?
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't know if I have anything significant to add with that. I think I would generally agree with that strategy.
So I remember, I won't name names, but one absolutely exceptional tech entrepreneur explained that how he ended up with his Series A, his lead investment for his Series A was he followed up with an investor that he met him at a conference and was following up. But he didn't actually have a chance to meet him at the conference. The investor had met so many people, he just didn't want to be rude. So he said, "Oh yes, of course, I remember you. It was fantastic. Yeah, let's follow up. Let's get a coffee."
That can work. At the very least, you could say you saw their speaking event, or you heard them judge something, or whatever.
That's pretty clever.
It's not foolproof, and it's not without its pitfall. I'm not advising it, but I'm just giving an example. So just there was a question that doesn't relate to the 3 guys, but I've seen it about 3 or 4 times, which has to do with the connectivity and the Wi-Fi at the Web Summit. So I've just brought in Paddy Blackley here, who's our kind of hardware geek for all Wi-Fi connectivity at the event. So Paddy, could you just explain what all the startups need to do?
Hi guys, so looking forward to getting to meet everyone in a few weeks. We will have for the startups who are exhibiting, we will have seriously fast broadband in place. Now, we have been working with the venue to make sure that everything runs really, really smoothly in this regard. However, Wi-Fi technology being what it is, what we would ask is to ensure that you have the best experience. Make sure that either the laptop that you're bringing is compatible with 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, or that you buy a USB 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi adapter. Now these cost about $35. So if you have this, this will guarantee that you have access to really, really fast internet, and not just fast, but reliable and consistent. So and I guess it's part of making sure that your exhibition is as impressive as it can be. So thanks a million. There is the message.
And I've actually got one little thing to add to that. One of the best tools that I figured out a couple of years ago when going over to Founders. Sometimes the using Verizon or AT&T, if you're coming in from outside of the country, the signal can be quite bad sometimes, and data is expensive. And so one of the things that I did early on was get a is your mind being blown right now? What's going on here, Patty?
If you say buy a MiFi, I will personally fly to San Francisco with a baseball bat.
It worked, man. It worked. Like I got a MiFi at like Vodafone, and I did a thing, you know. So
okay, so Patty, who spent 4 years in this field, is going to explain to everybody listening what MiFi does to our Wi-Fi network.
No. What I'm specifically saying is that when you're outside of the confines of the Web Summit, hey, listen, the Web Summit always extends beyond the confines of the conference center,
Agreed.
right? So when you are outside of the conference center and you still need signal, MiFi, but don't use it in the conference center, or else Patty will come to you with a baseball bat and
5 gigahertz. But just all this said, just be prepared also if things go wrong. I mean, as we all come together and screw each other's networking up, despite the best efforts of the staff, be prepared to work offline if you need to.
So just to be clear to everybody listening, this year at the Web Summit, and we're going to wrap in about a minute's time, MiFi, using a MiFi device inside the Web Summit is we don't allow it. It creates what's called cross-channel spectrum interference and creates a cascade effect between competing Wi-Fi channels, which leads to a mass outage. So they have the same problem with the Olympics. We had the same problem with the Web Summit last year. So this year we'll have Cisco cross-spectrum channel kind of guns to try and find people that have MiFi hotspots. And we would ask you, for the sake of everybody else, not to switch on your MiFi hotspot inside the Web Summit, and then everybody will have consistent and fast Wi-Fi connection. Is that correct, Patty?
That is spot on. So obviously we're going out on the limb a little bit here, but what we have in place and what the venue has in place is seriously impressive. But as long as everyone cooperates, it'll work perfectly. If you do start setting up your own hotspots, that's when we all start crying.
So just for that clarification, I'd just like to thank the three guys for giving up your time. We're going to do another hangout on Thursday with some fantastic technology reporters, writers, and bloggers. So to my three guests, the two Matts and the Alex, thanks so much for giving up your time, and I look forward to seeing you all in Dublin in 3 weeks' time. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
See you then.
Good luck.